evening, everyone. Welcome to San Miguel. We're doing our book report, obviously, this Life After Life, from an enclosed patio in our place in San Miguel. So we're not going to be together anymore this time. I'm going to speak, and then Jenny will jump in and have her little piece. So hopefully Jenny's timing for the 5 minutes. Anyway, Life After Life. I enjoyed the book immensely. It was I guess a compelling read, and it was easy to read because there's obviously lots going on. It took me a while to understand what exactly was going on because of at the end of every certain chapters, and darkness fell, and then snow, and then I began to realize that we're talking about death and reincarnation, or rebirth, or re-beginning, new beginnings. So once I sorted that out, it became very easy or very understandable what was going on. Obviously, the story was about Ursula. I'm not sure if the book is about parallel lives, all the choices we make in our lives, or if it's just an author's interesting way of doing a book. But I listened to an interview with Kate Atkinson, and she talked about that Ursula dies a lot in the first third of the book, but she dies less in the last two-thirds of the book. So there are lots of interesting stories to be told here. So is the book about death? Although Kate Atkinson said the book is a lot more about birth. So maybe birth, every time Kate Atkinson or Ursula goes through an event and potentially caused her death, is her next life, is she better than she was in the previous life? So I guess that's a Buddhist concept, that we die and we're reborn a stronger or better person. It sounds like, I felt like some of her brutal abortion led to her to having a brutal husband, and then went back again, and then she had a whole different approach to living. I found that the interesting parallels between different men, so her brutal husband versus the sort of the sweet and the tender Adolf Hitler that she had in that period of time, in that when she was in that her German life. I found the descriptions of both Germany during the war, and through Ursula's eyes and her child, and Ursula's eyes during the time that she was working in the Blitz, both very descriptive, and really felt like we were in the moment of both situations. So I don't know whether the book was meant to be fatalistic or a hopeful book, because every time she died, she came back in a different kind of life, but similar life, but a bit of stronger personality. I felt there was a lot of parallel stories, a lot of parallel characters, and obviously a lot of parallel lives. I enjoyed the book. I'm not sure, again, some of the reviews I read or some of the online book clubs talked about it, they would recommend this book highly. I got kind of confused. I'm still trying to figure out what my takeaway is from the book, but it was a very interesting story and a very interesting concept. So now I'll turn it over to Ginny.
Hi, you all. I think this was an attempt to try and give Steve a wee bit more time and even it out a little bit. Anyway, Glenn, thank you so much for choosing this book. I had heard of Kate Atkinson. I had never read anything about her, and I absolutely will now. It's always a pleasure as part of the book group to be introduced to authors we haven't heard of or have heard of and haven't read yet. So that was a real positive for me. It's not that I couldn't keep track of the characters in the time, because that's easily enough to do. It's set out well with dates. But I think one of the things that happened for me with this book is that because there's several Ursulas and there's several Teddys, or I think there's two Teddys maybe, Nancy lives and dies, and it became challenging to form attachments to these characters because I wasn't really sure, was this the Ursula that is Ursula really alive now? Or that detracted for me a little bit. Yes, it was a wee bit confusing, but I think it also, that took away from it for me. I've read other time flip books before, and it hasn't had exactly that same effect. So I don't want to start off with a negative, but that took a while to wade through. Then another thing was the murder of Nancy. That seemed to happen with no connection to anything else. If there hadn't been the story of somebody around in the neighborhood that people had to watch, or other missing children, or it was like she went missing and was murdered, and then that was it. And there was seemed to be no follow-up on that as to maybe the parents taking better care of their own children and keeping them in, or the police involved or something. So that all by itself seemed to be a slightly jarring note to me. The other thing that was slightly jarring, that was all by itself and didn't have a follow-up, was Ursula, when she was in the car with Izzy, seeing her mom coming out of the hotel with the man. And there was no more to that. And I think what I took from that is possibly that's a little hint at the things that we don't know about people's lives and never will know about people's lives. So certainly Sylvia and Hugh's marriage was not presented as being an idyllic one, but they did stay together. But maybe they found ways to make it work. And the fact that it wasn't necessarily followed up on possibly was tied to the theme of the book, that there's many things that we don't know that are going on anyway, including possibly parallel lives. The Ursula, that story of Ursula being raped, of Ursula being raped and then pregnant, and then of course her complete lack of understanding of what had happened to her, and then her outrages for the abortion, and just the horror of all of it, followed by the fact that only Pamela and Izzy were the ones that knew what actually happened to her. So she had to bear her mother's great disdain and anger towards her, and that tied into her feelings of low self-worth, which then seemed to follow along to tie into the fact that what else would she do but marry an abusive jerk? It was as though that was what she deserved. So I wondered if that was a bit simplistic. It seemed like the storylines followed a little bit along that line. That particular storyline I didn't care for. And animals, that's another thing. I noticed it while I was reading it, and then in a couple of reviews I read that the theme of animals, the wolf was Hitler, the bears were Ursula and Teddy, the fox, obviously, that was shot by Morris, and they lived in Fox Corner, the dog, Lucky, all of those things, and then the other dogs that were in and out of the story. So animals seem to be a theme in the book as well, and I have no idea if that's relevant or just a pure coincidence. I've just been given the high five here. I'm not quite done.
Okay, the battery's
What
dying.
I loved about the book...
The battery's dying.
Hmm?
The battery's dying.
Battery's gone?
No, keep going.
Okay. The family dynamics were very well drawn out. Go on. Family dynamics were very well drawn out. I love the fact that everyone in the family hated Maurice, including his own parents, because he was not easy to like. I liked that a lot. I liked the relationship between Pam and Ursula. I thought that rang true. They might have gone a wee bit overboard with, Izzy the extravagant aunt, but whatever. I thought she wrote those out well. What I loved was how Ursula was during the Blitz. I loved the fact that she was not the plucky heroine. She was throwing up, she was nauseated, she was fearful. That is exactly how, that made sense to me. I'm getting the cut here. Writing style was fantastic. I really enjoyed reading it. And I like that weird little relationship with Eva Braun and Hitler, because it pointed out their foolishness and their ordinariness, and I thought that was well done. I have just a couple of unanswered questions. Am I gone? Okay. Why did Teddy think that Ursula saved his life? He thanks her. Why does Sylvie say practice makes perfect at the very end? Is because it has been suggested she too had a parallel life. And then little Roland, he disappeared long enough to be drowned. And was Ursula aware that she had had previous lives? Anyway, that's it for me. I would love to have been present at this book club, because I think the conversation that comes out of this book will be extremely interesting. Anyway, we will see you next month.